So what? Ah. Let's see. Okay. So this is more like a look at the UK activities and the different things we typically do. So every 3 months or so we go down to Wiltshire, and we have a weekend where we look at peace principles and kind of reflect. It's lovely. It's out in the countryside, out of London. It's great. It's a beautiful this building here. Yeah, I think this. So it's a lovely place to go. So other things, sometimes we've had these little angels folk ballet come. I don't know if they were in that video, but they've come here a few times, but usually with some kind of diplomatic purpose. And they've often been a group which has gone to North Korea. They come from South Korea, they go to North Korea to try to win the heart of North Korean people, and so they have this kind of role. So it's a beautiful culture. So every year around March 8th, and we do something on International Women's Day. Margaret plays a big role in this, and this is Carol Stone. She's the most well-connected woman in the UK. An amazing person. But here we have the spokespeople of each of the major political parties, who are the spokesperson for equalities, which is great. Baroness Burma helps us a lot with hosting events. She's this lady. Sue Garden also has spoken at a number of events, and also Priti Malhotra, isn't it? Seema Malhotra. She's also spoken at a number of our events. Africa Day, always very colourful and very joyful. This is Charlotte Simon, who's a very righteous person, but she's been through a lot coming from Eastern Congo. So we've held events in the European Parliament, the UK Parliament, and upstairs many times, highlighting these issues of prevention of sexual violence and conflict. We've also, her daughter has something called the TG Foundation, so they're funding clinics and in Eastern Congo. But who's that? The doctor from Bukavu, very famous surgeon who actually spent his whole life healing victims of rape. I met him at that Excel conference. Yeah. But Charlotte knows him quite well. And, so youth empowerment is also a major thing, and again Margaret really takes the lead in this. So every year in July we have a Youth Achievement Awards, and we highlight particularly young adults and the kind of major things that they've accomplished. Breaking the slave chain. Humphrey Hawksley is one of our advisors. He's a former BBC correspondent. For about 30 years he's been with the BBC. Now he's like a step removed, I think, but he's still making documentaries which are commissioned by the BBC. Genocide is a major one, because genocide is like the worst. We're talking about like very major injustices, but genocide is the worst. When these level of government-initiated injustices come to pick on one particular community, a minority, and then stamp them out. It's horrific, and these are just some of the ones that we've highlighted in the past. Sheikh Ramsey is often talks about Srebrenica and Rohingya. I say to him, Sheikh Ramsey, what about the Falun Gong? Who's standing up for the Falun Gong? Because they don't have a religion behind them, or they don't have like major group of people who are really fighting for them or something. So in a sense we need some kind of unifying principle, but it's very difficult to apply unifying principles in international relations and so on, because national self-interest is so strong. So Sheikh Ramsey is one of our directors, and he's a good friend. Another area we've been involved in is particularly this interface of religion and politics and radicalization. And this gentleman here, you'll see a better picture of him later on, he was very much involved in the Northern Ireland Peace Initiative. He was the Archbishop of Armagh, and very strong kind of character. This is him. But on this side is our patron in Parliament, Virendra Sharma. He hosts a lot of our events as well. So, if you just press one of the volume buttons, it'll go off. Thank you. So he said, this is Lord Ames. He, for 13 years, he kept on trying and trying and trying to reach out to the other side and to start peace initiatives, and etc. For 13 years, he got nowhere. He said, I think one day someone just knocked on my door. Basically said, for 13 years we've been looking at you, and we've been watching, basically, and now we trust you. And we know that we're not going to get so far with violence. We'll just continue like this. We can get so far, but we can't accomplish what we want. So we want you to open up a dialogue. We trust you, like this. Amazing person for persistence. This is our founder, actually a co-founder. This is Mrs. Moon. So she spoke in Parliament as well. And now she's, in a sense, very much our kind of leader or guiding voice internationally. There's Margaret and I. We organised a room for her through this MP, Dave Anderson, who is an atheist, and his dad, I think, was like a Second-day Adventist or something, but he says, I know every argument about belief in God. He says, don't give it to me, I know the counter-arguments down to the core, he says. But he's a really serving person. If you're doing something for peace or you're doing something, he's there, and he's very supportive of these kinds of initiatives. He went to some of our conferences and he says, I don't want to hear anything more. He says, put me in the field where I can actually do something. So I think he went to Nairobi actually a number of years ago, and he was in the river that goes through Nairobi. Yeah. He was there kind of also with the others, kind of cleaning the river. But he says, I looked down the river and there was a lorry putting rubbish into the river. He said, yeah. But anyway, he met a number of Kenyan politicians as well during his time there. So he's an MP for the Northeast, I've forgotten the name. It's just Gateshead. So he's a trade unionist as well. This is to also a major supporter. Lord King passed away, but he was a great support. So principles of peace. There needs to be some kind of unifying principles whereby we can draw people together. In a sense, we might say being secular is better to unify people and bring people together, but actually we believe religions can actually bring people together. If people have a strong faith, in a sense, if they experience God, actually that's a very unifying process, because they also realize that other people have a strong faith as well. And if they really feel God's heart, then you can't hurt another person. It doesn't work as a person of faith. God's love is too strong for that. And the fear of losing God's love through hurting someone is also too hard. It's too much. So God being a true parent, we're going to look at these points, but of humankind is actually a source of a unifying nature. So God as a unifying principle we just need to look at our scriptures, because 80% of our scriptures are very much in common. We have a textbook which takes a point of faith and then shows what the different faiths say about it. 20% or so are maybe faith statements about the founder or so on, which are different, of course, but the underlying principles are so connected. They call me now, but anyway, it's okay. So, in this way, religion brings us together, and through interfaith, actually, if you go and worship with other groups and you listen, often those people who could experience their faith in a precious way could in the past also come together. So those who are people of like inner faith and inner experience, they also could minimize those boundaries between faiths. I love the Arab Christian who really understands Muslims so well, the Jewish Sephardic Jews who were raised in Arab countries. They speak Arabic, they know Arabic and Arabic culture, Muslim culture so well because they've lived in it. Those people can go beyond those lines of faith so easily. We need to work with this kind of principle. This principle also of fairness, of reciprocity, that we know that if I mistreat someone from your faith, it's just going to come back to hurt someone of my faith. So actually we need to practice our faith beyond faith lines, beyond the boundaries of religion, of race, of social economic background, of countries. And in this way, we can see humanity as one family, and all being God's children. Second thing is that we are essentially spiritual in nature. We have a physical body. And our life on earth is to build that spirit, to make that spirit strong, to cultivate our own nature. So self-development is good. You have a whole host of books on self-development, but it's only one part. They're very good to really discipline ourselves, to develop ourselves, but they don't have like the whole picture. The whole picture is actually something like this, where we need to practice self-discipline. We need to put our priority on these things, but have this in balance. To keep this in balance is very important. By keeping it in balance, then we can practice this in a sustainable way. If we don't eat, drink, sleep, etc., if we don't do those sufficiently, then we can't do this. But at the same time, if we put our emphasis on our material possessions, on having the most comfortable house, the most comfortable car, in a sense, having 40 or 50 cars in a park, how many can you have? And unfortunately, some people have been so immature that they've kind of accumulated all this wealth, and they haven't thought about the people who don't have anything. And then they spend all the money on the gates and the security forces and to protect their wealth. So all the time diminishing this. So if we put our focus here and maintain this in a reasonable way. So I love the Warren Buffett idea of, he just steadily gained wealth but practiced philanthropy. And he has a reasonable sized house, a reasonable car. He doesn't need a big car, or he doesn't need 10 cars, because he only goes across town in this small Midwestern town most of the time. But he has, when the financial crisis came in 2008, he was called to the White House because they wanted his wisdom. So we need to have this in balance. He also, Warren Buffett, got Bill Gates into philanthropy. Because of that, then certain diseases across the world started to reduce. Bill Gates invested a lot in tackling certain diseases. And that's a result of this kind of philanthropy. So we need to develop this and have a sense of this in our mind, of developing ourselves as people of truth, beauty, goodness, and love. And then we can have also self-respect. I love this quote, that we have to be right in all areas and be fighting to develop ourselves so that we can be people of integrity. And an amazing thing he did was challenge the British Empire, because we were doing many wrong things, but he didn't fight. He showed us a better standard. The other area is family. The family is the area to nurture this goodness, to nurture this love, to nurture this compromise. So we can have a successful life even without a strong family, but it's much more difficult. It requires much more effort. So this in a sense is the realm where peace can develop. Through this relationship of parents and children, we can develop the qualities of I think masculine and femininity coming together is important. But we need to have an ideal, and even non-ideal or less than ideal, I think it's still okay. Because people, they express so much love and care within the parent-child relationship. But having aunts and uncles, your 65 relatives and so on, this is wonderful, because then the children grow up with this very secure network of elders and loving, caring networks where people are concerned about them. And through that they can also come to learn to love different kinds of characters within their family, learn to compromise. The mum, also the dads, but many times it's the mum that's teaching to compromise, listening to the fighting siblings and teaching compromise. So if we learn compromise here, it informs our whole life. And many of the righteous people, the Gandhis, the Martin Luther Kings, many of these kinds of people had very informative experiences when they were a child, with their parents, with their siblings, with their aunts and uncles, which helped them in later life to become the great people that they were. Living for the sake of others, again, we learn often within the family, whether it's with a secret Santa or non-secret Santa or whatever. That's just one example. But living for the sake of others is so important within a family, but also family serving the community. Family shouldn't be like this, the fenced-off realm which separates one from another. But actually, it should be a strong family should be very much existing and supporting the society around it, the nation around it, and working for this world of peace, this world family. So living for the sake of others can happen on an individual level, it can happen on group level. As an NGO, then Universal Peace Federation, I can see by helping other groups, we've benefited a lot. So make a partnership. A few days ago we had this thing on elderly care. And one of our friends asked us to support them, to have an event to promote their work. And it was great. It was great to hear their principles and what they do. We did it before with a Mongolian group. It was about cervical cancer smears. It was a professional women's group of Mongolian women in Europe. And they wanted to raise their structure so that they could then raise money for cervical cancer smears within Mongolia, which wasn't being done in Mongolia at the time. So we had an event upstairs. We had an event in Parliament around International Women's Day, about 2012 or something like this. And we helped them to have these 2 events. But through that, I got to meet so many wonderful people. And a couple of years later, when we needed to have a room in Brussels for a conference, one of those people were the people that helped me to do it. So by living for the sake of others, always something comes back when you need it.
Yeah.
That network is really important to have. So living for the sake of others. And again, individual living for the whole first, to put the whole first, rather than the corrupted person who puts the individual first, and the whole, then the nation, the population, the people, the poor of the country suffer. So by putting the whole first and then the country taking care of the individual, when that's in balance, it works very well. It works in order. At least then you can have politics to discuss where the balance comes, you know. But when it's in some kind of order, legal order, but also moral order, it's better to have it in a good moral order, because then you don't need to make too many laws, you don't need too many policemen, you don't need too many lawyers, and so on. So it's much better if we have this in a good moral framework. And interreligious cooperation, as we were saying before. Religions have something, but also philosophy can do a lot. But religions can bring personal transformation. This is one of the wonderful things that religion can do. It can help people to change their direction. It can help people to find forgiveness. It can help people to reach out and say, you know, it might not mean much to you, but I forgive you. And therefore, you know, I'm not going to tell my children to hate you, or I can have compassion towards you, even though you've done me wrong. That is something which can liberate generations. And what happened in South Africa was amazing. So Nelson Mandela and that forgiveness liberated a lot. It changed a lot. And what's followed, maybe it hasn't been perfect, but it was so much better than it could have been. But in more ways than that, what's happened in Germany and the relationship between the German people and Jewish people, there's been a lot of work on this. So religions need to also take responsibility to heal conflicts. Often the Sunni and the Shia, for example, or the Catholics and Protestants in Northern Ireland, so many times there's religious conflict, or religion is used as a way of saying it's us against them, and because of that, then there are so many problems develop. But if we have interreligious dialogue, if religious leaders take that responsibility to lead their people forward, then a lot can be accomplished. And Martin Luther King was someone who really did that, an amazing person. Again, showing a higher standard, showing a higher way. I was in Mississippi, but this is 20 years later, and a lot had changed by the time I got there. But I could see there's still so many tensions, but it was, you know, on a legal level, things had really changed. But the black people were so amazing. I went to their churches many times, and it was so moving to see how well I was received, how warmly, and also to hear the music and the singing. You could just feel so much heart in it. So we never get rid of an enmity by meeting hate with hate. We have to get rid of an enemy by getting rid of enmity, by, in a sense, challenging the other person to overcome their enmity, by winning their respect. And this is a difficult course, but it's one that can be won. So forgiveness actually liberates people. It liberates a race, it liberates a nation, it liberates a block of nations to another block of nations. And it gives people hope. So this is the other co-founder of the movement. He's passed away now, but he was very good, I think, teaching about God's heart, and particularly this idea that God wanted nothing but joy for human beings, and that's the hope of humanity. But it comes, in a sense, with this one, I think, is really being genuine to ourselves. Two is also maybe being courageous to build this unified world of peace by recognizing that we have a responsibility to be honest to each other, to understand the needs of each other, and to understand that we're one. We can't be happy if there's another group out there that's being exploited so that I can do better. Whether I know about it or not, somehow we are responsible, whether we know or not. So this is Father Mother Moon, and these are various places where we have websites or social media, etc. Let me finish. Usually